The number appeared on bathroom stalls and scribbled on dusty windows, 7867, always accompanied by a warning, a dare. Call this number and face 10 challenges. Succeed and gain unimaginable power, fail and face the consequences. Most dismissed it as a childish prank, a silly game. But not Ethan Carter. 16 years old and bored with the mundane, Ethan craved the extraordinary. He yearned for the unknown. The phone felt heavy in his hand. It was as if the weight of the decision he was about to make was pressing down on him, making it difficult to breathe. Ethan had always been a thrill seeker, but this was different. This was a dare that could change everything. The numbers glowed ominously in the darkness of his room. Each digit seemed to pulse with a life of its own, casting eerie shadows on the walls. He had found the number scrawled on a piece of paper in an old, dusty book at the library. It promised an adventure, but at what cost? Doubt gnawed at him, but curiosity, like a siren's call, pulled him closer. He remembered the stories he had heard about this number, tales of people who had called and never been the same again. Yet, the allure of the unknown was too strong to resist. He took a deep breath and pressed the call button. His heart pounded in his chest, each beat echoing in his ears. The world seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. The ringing tone was unlike anything he had ever heard. It was a haunting melody, a mix of mechanical beeps and ethereal whispers. It sent chills down his spine, making the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. It was a low, guttural sound, vibrating deep within his bones. It felt as though the phone was alive, resonating with an ancient energy that was both terrifying and mesmerizing. He could feel the vibrations travel through his hand, up his arm, and into his very core. Then, a voice, raspy and ancient, answered, "You have chosen to accept the challenge, Ethan Carter." The voice seemed to come from another realm, echoing with a timeless authority. It was a voice that demanded respect and obedience, leaving no room for doubt or hesitation. Ethan's mind raced. How did this mysterious voice know his name? What challenge was it referring to? He felt a mix of fear and excitement, knowing that his life was about to change in ways he couldn't possibly imagine. The adventure had begun, and there was no turning back now. His first challenge was simple. Walk home alone through the abandoned graveyard at midnight. Simple, yet terrifying. The air grew colder as he entered the graveyard. Shadows danced around him, twisting and contorting into grotesque shapes. A cold hand brushed his neck, sending shivers down his spine. He wanted to run, to scream, but he pressed on, his heart pounding against his ribs. His room was no longer a sanctuary. The whispers started subtly at first, barely audible. Then they grew louder, more insistent. They spoke his name, his deepest fears, his darkest secrets. Sleep became impossible. His room, once a place of comfort, was now a prison of his own terror. He tried to block out the voices, but they were always there, relentless in their torment. Section 5. The third challenge. The eyes in the darkness. The darkness held new terrors now. Every shadow seemed to conceal watching eyes gleaming with malice. They followed his every move, their gaze burning into him. He tried to convince himself it was his imagination, but the feeling of being watched was ever present. He was never truly alone. They were always there, lurking just beyond his sight. Section 6. The fourth challenge. The taste of fear. This was not just a test of courage, but a deep dive into the very essence of terror. The challenges became more insidious, burrowing into his senses. Each step he took was laden with the weight of unseen eyes watching him, the air thick with an unspoken dread. First, it was the metallic tang of fear, a taste so sharp and bitter it felt like it was cutting through his very soul. It lingered on his tongue, refusing to fade, always present in his mouth, a constant reminder of his torment. No matter what he did, he couldn't escape it. It was as if fear had become a part of him, woven into the fabric of his being, a constant reminder of his torment. The nights were the worst, filled with shadows that seemed to move and whisper, taunting him with his deepest fears. Then came the feeling of unseen hands, cold and clammy, dragging their icy fingers across his skin. It was as if the very air around him was alive, reaching out to pull him into the abyss, dragging their icy fingers across his skin. He was losing himself, his sanity slowly unraveling with each passing challenge. Every sound, every rustle of leaves, sent him into a spiral of panic. his sanity slowly unraveling with each passing challenge. He could feel his grip on reality slipping, the line between what was real and what was imagined becoming increasingly blurred. He was trapped in a nightmare, a never-ending cycle of fear and confusion. The world around him had become a twisted reflection of his own mind, filled with horrors that defied explanation, and the line between reality and illusion blurred. He no longer knew what was real and what was a figment of his tortured imagination. The taste of fear was all-consuming, leaving him in a state of perpetual dread. Section 7. The fifth challenge, the scent of death. The scent of decay permeated his senses, a constant reminder of his own mortality. It clung to him, suffocating him. It was the smell of rotting flesh, of damp earth, of things long dead. He couldn't escape it. It followed him everywhere, a harbinger of his doom. He was drowning in fear, his spirit slowly being crushed under the weight of the challenges. Section 8. Refusal and mercy. 5 challenges down, 5 more to go. But Ethan had reached his limit. He couldn't take it anymore. The voice on the phone, cold and amused, offered him a choice. Continue and risk his sanity, or refuse and face the consequences. No more, Ethan whispered, his voice hoarse with terror. He was done playing the game. He just wanted his life back. Section 9. A haunting reminder. Silence. The air was thick with an eerie stillness, the kind that makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. The world seemed to hold its breath, waiting for something to break the silence. Then a sigh, heavy with disappointment. Very well, Ethan Carter. The voice was cold, devoid of any emotion, yet it carried a weight that pressed down on Ethan's chest. He felt the chill of the words seep into his bones, a reminder of the darkness that lurked just out of sight. You have been granted mercy, this time. The line went dead. The challenges ceased, the whispers faded, the eyes disappeared. But the fear remained. Ethan knew deep down that this reprieve was temporary. The silence was not a sign of peace, but a prelude to the next wave of terror. The number 7867 was more than just a prank. It was a symbol, a mark of something far more sinister. Each time he saw it, a shiver ran down his spine, a reminder of the malevolent force that had set its sights on him. It was something ancient and evil, a presence that had been lurking in the shadows for centuries, waiting for the right moment to strike. The ruins and dark caves were its domain, places where the light of day never reached. And it was still out there, watching, waiting. The abandoned house in the woods, the shadowy figure in the field, they were all part of its game, pieces on a board that Ethan could not see, waiting for its next victim, waiting for him. The empty playground at dusk, the solitary streetlight casting long shadows, they were all reminders that he was never truly alone. The presence was always there, lurking just out of sight. He had escaped the challenges, but the scars they left were deep. The rusty chains and worn-out trails were symbols of his struggle, reminders of the battles he had fought and the ones still to come. But he knew, with chilling certainty, that this was far from over. The overgrown paths and misty forests were not just physical obstacles, but manifestations of the darkness that pursued him. He was forever marked. The abandoned house with its broken window, the solitary figure on the deserted road, they were all part of the haunting reminder that he could never escape. The darkness was always there, waiting, watching, and it would never let him go.